State's role becomes to provide a very high-speed connectivity network where you have the confidence that you can evacuate yourself from an airport or whatever within 2 hours. Do this as the regional development across. The state needs to play that role. And the state needs to start thinking differently. How do I give a governance layer? Because we tend to think in terms of districts as administration units of governance. So how do I do a layer on top where in the context of the region, it works fairly seamlessly while recognizing the importance of locally elected, whether it be urban centers, villages, or whatever. I think that's really got to be the challenge where we can think in terms of how to do this governance layer. The other thing, just quick thoughts on the financing of cities. I mean, it's all well known. This group is an expert group. So property tax clearly continues to be the principal source, but underutilized. User charges are being charged well below. But innovative financing in terms of unlocking land value and other means, there's a lot of distance to cover out there. In terms of debt and municipal bond, it's non-existent. And it goes back to the trust deficit and a whole lot of other challenges. And PPP in the urban space is almost non-existent in terms of success stories. Last 2-3 points really is capacity gap. Everybody keeps talking about it. It's serious. It's huge for those of us who have actually volunteered to work in the space. And one doesn't know where to start to fix this whole capacity gap. But I really believe that things that could help, and I'm a great believer in collaboration, that people in government and people outside of government need to come and find ways to work together to fix cities. I am, over the last 6-7 years, been trying to work on businesses saying, like, if the city doesn't work, business is going to suffer. Therefore, it's in your vested self-interest to figure out how to make a city work, because you will make more money. You'll have a more productive city. And business has been a stakeholder which has stayed away from this whole process. So we need to find how to get, and they got strengths which can actually synergize well with the kind of capacity gaps that we talk about in government. Another issue which is not, the book of course hardly refers to it, but the thing is we have serious corruption at our local government and city levels. Leakages in projects are of the order of 40 to 50%. Unless we face up to it, I could raise all the money that I want, but it's going to be watered down the drain if I don't find ways to make sure. So, I don't know, greater transparency, how to fix this whole issue. But we need to address this issue up front if we're going to make this happen. Finally, going forward, just like we can bypass some of the problems as we become a developed country, clearly as we think about the future, sustainability, though it's an overused phrase, is something that has to be at the core of whatever we try to do in these cities. So whether it's energy, water, waste, mobility, and the like, sustainability clearly has to be the thing. And my belief as someone who's been working in the system, I call myself a professor of hopeless and difficult causes, making very little impact. But I really believe that the way forward is joint collaboration. We are in a collective hellhole, whether it's the politician, the administrator, or the citizen, or the business. And we need to figure out how to come out of that hellhole together. So if we can find the language of collaboration and make this happen, we have a greater chance of doing this journey successfully. Otherwise, 20 years from now, when the next book comes out, we will be talking the same things that we spoke just now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ravi. Maybe before I open this for discussion, let me just make 3 broad points. One of the problems that we have at our current phase of development in India is this rural-urban divide that keeps coming up in the political mind and in the minds of many, many people. How to convert that into rural-urban synergy, and Ravi, you mentioned that maybe we should be talking in terms of regional development. How to bring about a mindset which says that as our urban areas are expanding at the periphery, that there should be, these should be inducted as notified statutory urban local governments rather than wanting to remain rural because there is sort of more money coming their way if they remain rural. And this, I'm just putting it in very general terms, but it's actually a recognized and a very, very serious problem that we have. The second problem is that as you go around the cities of India and you see that the state of service delivery is visibly so deficient, naturally, a lot of emphasis today is on service delivery, on solid waste management, on give us clean and continuous water, treat our wastewater. Today, we have only 15% on average of sewage which is treated. The rest is returned to our water bodies untreated. So because of that, and because the consciousness is rising in the increasingly younger population in the cities, the focus is on decentralization. Now, at one level, this decentralization is good because it brings accountability closer to where action is. And with transparency, accountability, and new technology, you can actually extract better delivery. But there is a certain conflict between this and the third feature, which is the need for metropolitan planning, metropolitan financing, and connectivity so that you have clusters of cities and agglomeration benefits that you can realize. Now, if we go down the path of decentralization as a mantra and ignore metropolitan development and financing at a stage when our urban GDP's share in total GDP is going to rise from 2/3 today to 75% by 2031, then we are really missing a very critical piece of action. So I think what this book has brought to us is really an international perspective on how to think about metropolitan development. And while our focus in many ways will remain service delivery because it's so immediate, it's not even about sustainability, it's about survival. The public health challenges become so large that we cannot just think of this as some climate change issue. It is the issue of what will we do in the next monsoon when more viruses emerge, and how will we tackle that. So because the emphasis is so much on that, we need to keep some room for thinking on how to do metropolitan planning, financing, and connecting development when we are making big choices about metros versus BRTS, how to connect cities. So in that context, what I would like is to have some views from the audience on what you think could work in this metropolitan planning and development context. So I make the floor open for such discussion. Yes, please. Here.
Thank you. I think, Dr. Ahluwalia, you touched on the crux of the issue which should come into focus today. The first point is the political will part of it. If this 2-month-long process of elections and debates have not really been able to bring out these issues, and as Ravichandar mentioned, no one wants to discuss the local issues when it's a parliament election. So in such a scenario, how do we succeed in bringing about the type of change which has to be brought about as far as thinking about the urban areas are concerned? That's going to be critical. One only lives on hope. One hopes probably the new government will have a different way of looking at things. If it doesn't happen, we wait for another 5 years. So how to make that happen? The second point would be, as you rightly mentioned, looking at issues at that level. Your report has talked about empowerment, and I think your high-powered expert committee report has all the details as to what needs to be done about resource generation or finding more resources for the local body areas. So it's a question of governments deciding to act on that. But that would again get linked with the political will part of it, whether we have the will to do it or not. The third point is, I think as far as metropolitan governance, or I would go further to megacity governance, I think it's time we have a detailed look at whether the forms which we have, whether they are sufficient and ideal, and what type of change needs to be brought about. We conventionally think about, as Mr. Baijal mentioned, the corporations, the municipal councils, and the third level of town areas or panchayats. We probably have to think in terms of a different mechanism. And that would get linked with the point you made about regions. In fact, I've referred to this point in an article I'm bringing about in the context of the creation of Telangana. Probably one of the lessons we should learn is we tend to ignore certain basics when we look at the artificial limits we have. As you mentioned, the urban area, that's the notified part. We looked at this from the rural point of view. When the fund flow for the rural areas is much better, why should a rural area opt to become an urban area where there will be more burden of taxation and things like that? So that's a point we need to address. Similarly, regions stretching beyond the limits of notified urban areas and also the contiguous areas of two states. I think that's also going to make a difference. The linguistic separation has become more or less irrelevant, or probably we are going beyond that. So in that context, an area joining the Telangana part with Maharashtra or Orissa would draw some sort of attention, because you cannot have one type of development on the other side and another type of development on this side. These are some of the points I think which need to be debated a little bit further so that there is a way forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, please. It'll be good if you name yourself before you.
Ma'am, my name is Mayank Sharma. I'm Additional Commissioner in Municipal Corporation, Delhi. And I also took the liberty of inviting Mr. Khan, also Additional Commissioner Revenue in Municipal Corporation of Delhi, on your behalf. 2-3 very quick and important points. Again, as I said, as a practitioner, which I would like to make is that there are various models which we generally discuss in most of such conference. PPP is one such model which is very good, and we talk about it a lot. But my request is that I personally feel there has to be a very, very strong interaction between practitioners and people who are involved in academic research on a regular functioning basis. These conferences, people like 1 or 2 of us come and we listen to you, we carry back the ideas, but the practicality of working in an environment in MCD is very different. There you don't even get to time to read the newspaper. So it's only whatever we absorb from here, we try to do something there, but if there is a structured, regular interaction between people who are in academics and doing research in this area and people who are practicing it, it will be very good. 2 very important
May I just say something?
Yeah.
This is not for want of trying.
No, ma'am.
You won't
You've been
believe
kind enough. I mean, you
how
invited us,
hard
yeah.
we work to try to get
Yeah.
people like you to come.
We are interested, that's why we are here, ma'am. Second point, very important point is, Professor Pete, I think will pardon me for this. In academic circle, we've been hearing a lot about 3 Fs, function, functionality, and functionaries and finances. We have certain very strong views on that, is that before any recommendations in academic circle on the functioning of corporations is made, kindly consult people who are working there. Regarding functionaries, there is a very, very strong need to make sure that people who are working in municipal corporations or municipalities, they are very capable.
They are
Today,
very,
they should be very capable and qualified, and the capacity building should be very strong. Deputation should be a very important point. We are deputationists. And we personally feel that most of the new ideas are generated from people who come on deputation and go. Maximum problems are faced by people who come on deputation. Every day we are outsiders. Openly told in our face that these people come and go. Privately everyone says, boss, only you are working. But the problem is that the whole process of selection of people in corporation, their training, their recruitment rules, their promotion has to undergo a sea change. If this doesn't happen, the cities are doomed, because we know what's happening. We know how people are selected. We know how they are promoted, how they come to a level, their capabilities. I'm not trying to talk in terms of we and they, but this is a serious problem. We are all citizens of this country. Somebody has to take a look. Somebody has to give a recommendation which has a very strong bearing on the manpower planning of corporations and municipalities. Third very important point is, we talk about large number of models of financing and development. One very new idea that we tried in Municipal Corporation of Delhi, which became a great success, was that we wanted to start a project, and I'll give you a very concrete example of us starting a medical college. We said we'll start a medical college in Municipal Corporation of Delhi. It was a new idea. There was a project which was going on for more than 1 year on PPP mode, and the cost of this project was about 1,500 crore. We said, no, we'll try something very new, and I think that model should be studied and reported. So we started a model